Check out the description below this video for more info about the tools and parts for this project. Click on the Show More button for a list of products and get all the specifications by following the links below. Hey guys, today I'm going to be installing a new wall receptacle, a wall plug, because believe it or not, there's one plug for the entire garage. So the other day when I was running my table saw, a vacuum cleaner, and a bunch of work lights on the same outlet, what I did was I turned off the vacuum cleaner and I heard the RPM of the table saw go up slightly, so that means there's a voltage drop on that line when I run all those things at the same time. So I'm going to install a 20 amp plug. I've got the garage nice and warm, and let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is turn off the power to my electrical panel here. And by the way, this is the QO Square D load center. That's what it's called. This is a pretty common household load center, an electrical panel. It's a 60 amp, and this is a perfect type for the garage. I just installed it recently, so I'm just rewiring the whole garage, and I'm going to be adding a 20 amp breaker. So these are some of my empty breakers here. I've got three 20 amps that are, I just put them in there. There's nothing running into them, so I'm going to be wiring something into those. I think I'm going to switch it to that side though, because I don't want to take too long doing this, and this wall's already open. So I'm going to switch this over to that, and first thing I'm going to do now is take off the panel. And I'm just going to take off this front part, and that will give me access to the part where the wires are. Take out the 4 screws here. Okay, so before proceeding, I want to make sure that there's no power in this section of the breaker. And remember that I just turned off this breaker here, so this main breaker, so there's still power in this section. If something slips down there, there could be an electrical short circuit. So just be really careful when you're doing this kind of work and don't let anything slip down there. But just to check, I'm clipping this down here and checking the line, one of these lines here, with the white, and I've got 0.1 volts, so that means that there's no voltage in it. So it's safe to go ahead and work on this. Well, relatively safe, since there is still power in there, so just be very cautious. So Square D, you just unclip this from the center. It's got 2 clips in it. Let's see if I can unclip that. I think it just hooks into there. There. See, it's got this part here clips onto those metal tabs there, and this part here clips onto this plastic bar. Now this is a 20 amp one, and I'm going to just shuffle this over to the other side, because I want to run my wire to the other side. So let me clip that in here. And there you go. The really nice thing about Square D breakers is that you got this, when it trips, see this little window here? When the breaker trips, that'll turn red. So you can go immediately to your panel and you'll see exactly which breaker has tripped. So there's my breaker, and I'm going to be knocking out one of these holes now. So by the way, I'm using the UEI G2 Phoenix multimeter. This is a really good multimeter. It's the Pro Model DL389 True RMS meter. So it comes with test leads, obviously, and it also comes with some clips to clip on your test leads to wires, and it also comes with a thermometer wire, so you can plug it into here and you have a thermometer function on your multimeter. So it's got voltage, resistance, continuity, microfarads, amperage, and temperature. So I'm really happy with this. Obviously it reads DC and AC voltage. So this step is pretty easy. I'm just going to knock out one of these punches here with a screwdriver. Got a screwdriver and a hammer. I'm just going to go ahead and knock out one of these holes. And I'll twist off the rest of it with my needle nose pliers. Here we go. Alright, next I'm going to be installing one of these 3/8 cable connectors. This will fit right into the punch out hole. So I just go and loosen this little nut here, insert it into there, and just screw that part on. Usually you can just twist them in by hand. That's pretty tight. You don't need any tools on the other side. If you really want to, you can use some needle nose pliers and just tighten the other side. That's tight. Alright, so I'm ready to install the receptacle onto the stud. I've got my box here. So the minimum height of these receptacles is anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. That's to the center of the receptacle. But a good rule of thumb is just to take your hammer and place it on your floor, lean your box against it, and that's about your height. So I've got mine, you can nail these into, I've got screws just because I have these on hand, and I'm going to take my impact wrench with the right drill bit slip it on there, and I'm going to go ahead and drill that in. There we go. So I just wanted to show you guys some really essential tools you can have in your toolkit, and one is this Makita impact wrench kit. Now all these bits come with the impact ready and on it. Let's see if we can focus on that. So you can just slip them onto your drill. Super easy to take on and take off. Just slip that little ring forward on your impact wrench and slip the other one on and you're ready to go. This is a Milwaukee M18 drill impact driver. These are really good. It's so much torque in this little drill, it's incredible. I mean, you really have to be careful with it actually, because you can strip out certain bolts. I've drilled into concrete with this. It drills just huge bolts, huge screws. It's got amazing torque, amazing power. And these are the big style batteries here that really last a long time. You got a battery indicator. Actually, got to charge this really soon. And this one actually fell from like a 1-story to the ground, and the casing cracked open, and I was still able to wire it together with some cable here, and it still works, so I'm pretty happy with that. And the great thing about these batteries is that you'll get constant torque right up until the very end of the battery life. So you can even say this is on 1 bar here. I'm still getting the maximum amount of torque and power, and eventually you'll just stop dead from one moment to the next. So these are really good tools. I've had this for about 3-4 years now, and it's never let me down. So next step, I'm just going to be taking out one of these knockouts. I'll take this one out. Just get that twisted off a bit. There we go. Alright, so I got my parts for the next little step here. I have a 20 amp receptacle right here. So make sure that if you're installing receptacles that you want to run, it will be rated to 15 to 20 amps or up to 20 amps. Make sure that you have a receptacle that's rated for that much. Most receptacles are for 15 amps, and you have to kind of go the step up to get the ones that are rated 20 amps. This one says 20 amps right here. And also I got this is an old, not old wire, but some wire that I had lying around in the garage, and this is 12 gauge wire. So this is suitable to be running current up to 20 amps. So I'm going to run this into my box here. Okay, so once that wire's passed through the top, I can go ahead and tighten the little screw that's in there. And that's just a stopper to hold the cable down. Make sure that's nice and snug. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to connect the ground wire to the casing of the box. There's a screw down there, and it's got two channels on each side. And it's a good idea to make a little loop like this so you can loop it around the right way. I'm going to put it there, just squeeze it a bit on the other side. Make sure it's aligned, and I can go ahead with my square head screwdriver, tighten that sucker down. Here we go. Alright, next I'm going to be stripping the wire with some wire strippers here. And so just select the right. Mine's got like all the numbers for the gauges, so I'm going to go in the slot that says 12 for 12 gauge. If you have 14 gauge, just use 14 gauge. And just take off like an inch that. Oops, I didn't get that. One and two. Okay. Next, you want to pre-curve these with your needle nose pliers. Just make a little curve like that so you can slip it around the screws really easily. There we go. Okay, now these wires are on, and I just want to point something out here on the side. There's a little bar here. There's two screws here, and you can actually cut this bar and have two circuits on each. So you'd have to have two wires running to two separate breakers. That's the thing that you can do with these plugs. So just go ahead and tighten any loose screws. There's also a green screw here that's for an extra ground. You can go ahead, you can connect a ground to this, to the ground of the receptacle. It's kind of up to you though. It's kind of overkill since this is already touching the box. So there's a little chance that, I mean, it's already grounded. This part is already grounded. You don't need an extra wire connecting that. So just, you can at least screw it in though. That does. And let's see this one. Screwing in all these screws just makes it so that any loose wires in there, if there's anything that comes loose, there's less of a chance of it short circuiting. So here we're going to check out the orientation of this plug. And so if you want your ground, usually the ground is on the bottom, so we're just going to twist this to make sure that it is on the bottom. And just try to fold make an accordion kind of with your wires there. Make sure they all fit inside the box. There we go. And I've got my small square screwdriver here. Start to tighten that down. And last but not least, for this receptacle, I'm going to install a cover on it. You should never leave your receptacles with just bare like that. You see this all the time with no covers on them. If something slips into there, you could have to, that's a risk of electric shock, so always put covers on your receptacles. So this just goes on with a screw on the center, flat screwdriver right here. There we go. Okay, let's move up to the electrical panel now. Alright, so with any installation you're going to want to tack your cable down with some cable staples so that when you get to your electrical box, you're going to have the right length of wire going to the box. You don't want to connect both the receptacle to the panel with a bunch of slack on your line, and when you go to tack it down, you'll be kind of short. So tack it down first, and then you cut the last thing. Alright, so I'm ready to tack here. I got my tack in place on the stud, and I'm just going to hammer this in. Got some little stoppers on the side. You only go to a certain depth. Just going to put a second staple in right here. Alright, so now just measure your electrical cable so you have enough space to go into your breaker. And I left a little bit more space here in mine just so that if I had to move some stuff around, I had a little amount of leeway to move the breakers around. So I'm going to cut mine right here. Now I'm going to feed it through the casing of the box. And I'm going to tighten down this cable connector here. And now it's time to strip this length of cable. I'm going to take my utility knife here and just sink it right into the middle. There we go. So now I'm going to cut the cables to the appropriate length. So I got my ground here, and it's going to go into this ground bar right here. So I'm going to cut that one there. And this line's going to go up here. There's some space so I can move it around later if I want. I think I'm just going to leave it as is. The white wire, the neutral, is going to go down here. That's not going to move. So I'm going to cut it right here. There. And just strip the ends. We're going on the 12. There's the line. There's the neutral. And the ground is stripped already, of course, it's bare. Alright, so I fed my ground wire through this grounding bar here. You can see it's still loose. I'm just going to tighten that down. Next up we got the neutral wire here. Just going to make sure that the little slots open. There we go. These are really great panels. This particular one is actually mounted upside down, which is a really cool thing that you can do with these panels. Is that you notice my main is on the bottom because there was just like an electrical switch panel. There was no main breaker before, so I just installed this one. And since the cable was not long enough to go all the way up the panel to the top and to go back down here. Let's see if I can back up here a bit. So since the cable wasn't long enough to go loop around the panel and to feed into the top, I had to find a way to feed it through the bottom. And luckily this panel you can mount it both ways, so it's really awesome. You can just have your main there, and my main line was long enough to just go into this main breaker here. Last but not least, I got my line here that I'm going to feed into this breaker. I think it's still screwed in. Just gonna unscrew it and feed it into the little slot there. Oh, still not unscrewed. There we go. I just left my wire a bit long, so I'm just going to trim it. Just gonna trim it down just a bit like this. Go. Feed it into here. There we go. Tighten that down. You want this stuff pretty tight, like, you know, when you hit the bottom, it's gonna tighten up real good, because you don't want loose connections. You definitely don't want loose connections in these, because a loose connection can mean some higher resistance, and once the resistance goes up, the heat goes up, and that's what can start a fire. So you want all your connections to be extra tight. Now we're about ready to test. Let's run our test now. So to run our test, I've got my breaker that I just installed to the off positions. These are the ones that were on already. These are extra ones that are not connected yet. So I'm going to turn on my main breaker, and the lights are on, and I'm going to turn this one on, my recent installation. And just be extra careful if you're doing this with a panel open, because you can get an electric shock if you stick your fingers in here, so just be super careful. And we're going to go test the receptacle right now. Alright, I plugged in my multimeter to my receptacle, and it looks like we got 120 volts. So, success! And once again, it's really fun to have, it's really good, actually essential to have one of these multimeters in the house, so you can do all kinds of electrical work in safety. The other cool thing you can do with this, let me just unplug this here, is it's got a non-contact voltage. So you can, in any setting, if you're in ohms, resistance, or whatnot, you can go up to the electrical outlet with this NCV button here. So I've turned it on. It's not sensing anything, but watch this. So there, it's detecting the voltage on this one, and it's also detecting it on this lower plug. Sorry, my hand's in the way there, but you know what I mean. And the really good thing is, if you're just up to a random cable in your house and you want to see if it has voltage in it or not, you got your non-contact voltage button, and you can go up to anything and see if there's voltage in it. This is my main power source here. Alright guys, so last part, we're gonna stick the panel back on, so we're gonna have a really safe electrical panel. Now when you do this, you're gonna want to turn the power off, lights off, and because the panel you have a risk of touching the active electrical elements there, so just be safe all the time. Safety first, that's what it's all about. Alright guys, that concludes this little video on installing a receptacle, a 20 amp receptacle in your Square D QO panel. And remember that if you're installing QO breakers or into a Square D QO panel, you absolutely need QO Square D breakers. I went to the hardware store and I got just any old breaker, and they did not fit. They got a different claw pattern there that clips onto the back of your board. So make sure you get the right breakers. And I'll have a link in the description for all the trusty tools. I was using this UEI multimeter and impact wrench and some other things. So check out those links. I hope you have a good time installing your electrical receptacle. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Check out the description below this video for more info about the tools and parts for this project. Click on the Show More button for a list of products and get all the specifications by following the links below.